I said, well, all I love is all these pets I have running around this house. And she says, well, I think it's a job called a veterinary, and I think that's an animal doctor. I'm not 100% sure, but that's one option. And I said, okay, well, that's what I'm going
Hey, multipliers, welcome to another episode of Legacy Discussions Podcast, where we leave legacies and not liabilities. Today, we are doing something a little different. Normally, I read the bios, but I'm going to have Miss Krista introduce herself. So, Krista,
do.
tell the people who you are.
Hello, everyone. I am Krista Miller. I am a mom. I am a friend, mentor, a whole list of things. I have recently become a new entrepreneur, so this is all new to me. I'm excited to be here on the podcast today. I have a love for animals, so today we'll be exploring my adventures in veterinary medicine and all the things in between. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yes. So, I didn't know people like you existed.
We exist. We exist in low numbers, but
Yes.
we do exist, and we're working really, really hard to try and increase
Yes.
those numbers. But it's a work in progress for sure.
I think that's amazing. And so, what I mean when I say people like Krista, like to see someone that's from Moss Point, Louisiana.
Moss Point, Mississippi.
Oh, Jesus.
It's
I'm
okay.
mixing. I'm mixing because my husband's from Moss Point too. So, he gonna kill me. I gotta redo that. He gonna be like, "What? You gonna have the whole in-laws mad at me?" Okay.
Coming to the
So,
show.
the in-laws coming like you said. Moss Point. What now? Okay. So Moss Point, Mississippi.
Yes.
A graduate alumni of Alcorn
Alcorn State. Yes, ma'am.
and a veterinarian
And
and
a
a franchise
Yes.
owner.
Now a franchise owner. Yes.
You're like a unicorn.
That's what they say about
Yes.
veterinarians. Period. So
Yes.
why not?
So your love for animals, is that what sparked you to get into the franchise business and becoming a veterinarian?
Yes. So just to give you a backstory,
Okay.
When I was 5 or 6 years old, kindergarten, growing up in Moss Point, this is it was predominantly like a marginalized area, low socioeconomic at the time, and the big careers were being a teacher, being a lawyer, a doctor. Those are the
Yeah.
big things you could be coming out of the areas that we were. And so I had decided I wanted to be a nurse. Went to career day, and every girl in my class, every little black girl wanted to be a nurse. And I remember
Yeah.
coming home to my mom and saying, Mom, everybody wants to be a nurse. I want to do something different. Like, I don't want the same job everybody has. And she says, well, both of my parents were hard labor workers. So they come from the shipyard, the paper mill. Those were big jobs in
Yeah.
Moss Point and in that area, industry that was big. And so I remember saying, Mom, this isn't what I think I want to do. And she says, well, they say, you know, how everybody say they say. She said, they say that you should do something that you love. And I said, well, all I love is all these pets I have running around this house. And she says, well, I think it's a job called a veterinary, and I think that's an animal doctor. I'm not 100% sure, but that's one option. And I said, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. And so it was one of those things where for me, it was a light bulb moment, but I think for everyone else, it was a phase that I would grow out of. So being a little black girl from the hood, want to be a vet, we don't even see vets. Our animals
Right.
don't even go to the vet. So what does it look like to say, this is your dream, and how do you get there? And I remember my mom saying, you know, me and your dad will support you. We can't tell you how to get there. My mom had like a high school education, finished high school. My dad didn't finish. So it's like now we're trying to navigate something that we don't even have a clue about how to get to. So my parents told me it was my responsibility to figure it out. And whatever they needed to do to help, I had to tell them what their roles were.
Wow.
And so from there, that was how that started. And this is where we at now.
Wow. So where was your first job as a veterinarian?
So my first job, period, was we joke about this because when I first moved to Louisiana, my friend and I we were sitting in a circle. We were doing a team building activity at work, and one of the questions was, "What was your first job?" And so she was sitting next to me and she laughed. And the other technicians who knew me, they laughed too. So everybody was going around the room, and I worked at Starbucks. I worked at the car dealership. I worked for my mom. And I said, my first job was being a vet. My family told me that my job was to go to school, get a good education, and make something of myself. And so they never forced me to have to get a job at 16. It was always, we'll do the working as long as you keep your end of the bargain up. So my first real job was working after I graduated from veterinary school in a amazing clinic in Little Rock, Arkansas, being my first job as a veterinarian.
Wow. Wow. So you mentioned you had a whole bunch of animals running
Yes.
around the house.
Yes.
Was it dogs? Was it cats? Was it
It
a little
was
bit of
a little bit
everything?
of everything. So it started out. My dad brought me this little white dog named Sunshine. It was a puppy he brought home. He was a deep sea fisherman. He worked out of Louisiana for Zapata and Haney Corporation, I think the name was. And he came home after one of those long fishing months of fishing. And he came home, brought me this puppy. My mom was like, "We live in an apartment. Where we gonna put this puppy?" And so we ended up moving into a house not too far from the apartment complex we lived in, and her name was Sunshine. So I fell in. Sunshine was really my ray of sunshine, and she was the first pet that I owned that I fell absolutely in love with. Within a few months of living in that house, Sunshine died.
Oh,
Not
wow.
knowing why, I have no clue why, but as a kid, I've had this dog for a few years. She was my best friend. Where'd she go? And so then I got another dog. And of course, again, as people of color growing up in the areas we were, dogs lived outside
Yeah.
and we fed them what we ate left over. They were either chained in the backyard. That was just the world we grew up in. That was our norm. And so I got another dog, and that dog had puppies, and those puppies had puppies. And then I had an uncle that raised raccoons. That was his
Mm.
thing. He loved to hunt. So they would often just drop things off. Hey, where's Chris? I found this turtle while I was cutting grass, baby turtle. Had that, kept that for a while. Dad would take me to the fair. Win the goldfish, keep the goldfish. Win the rabbit, keep the rabbit that has rabbits. Squirrel gets in the garage. Mama, can I have that too? So it turned to the point that I had tons of animals in the garage because they could not come in the house. And so my friends in the neighborhood would actually come to the house and we would take a tour around the garage to see all
Wow.
the pets that I had collected. And I took fairly decent care of these pets, and to my knowledge and what my parents knew. And my mom was definitely afraid of birds. And I asked my dad, "Could I have a parakeet?" And he said, "Why not?" He bought me two. And so my mom was like, "Why would you buy her birds knowing that I'm afraid of birds?" So I had a lot of pets. Cats, kept all the kittens. And the only thing we knew about spaying and neutering at that time was Bob Barker when Price is Right got ready to go off, and he said,
Yes.
please spay and neuter your pets. We had no clue what
Yeah.
spay and neuter words was. We just kept everything. So
Right.
I had all of those pretty much all at the same time over years.
Yeah. So did you eventually start giving them away, or did they
So eventually,
transition?
the issue was you would take where we lived and you would have all these people with stray dogs and stray pets, and they weren't old, they were dying from getting hit by cars, and you would just find them dead in the yard, and you're like, I don't know why. So I remember saying to my mom, I'm not quite sure why all of my pets keep dying, but I got to figure this out, which is one of
Mm.
my reasons for deciding I was going to be a vet, because how do I fix the problem,
Oh,
because
I
I don't
love
know
that.
what's wrong with them. So
Yeah.
it became a passion for, I love all of them, but why do they keep dying so young? And one street over, everybody else's dogs living for a lifetime. So it became a puzzle to me that I had to figure out. Well, on this street, our pets are dying, but just a few blocks away, everything's thriving. So
Yeah.
what's the problem?
I'm curious now. What was it?
So the problem was most of our people in our communities didn't know about access to care for our pets. They didn't know pets need to go to the vet. All they knew was you get a dog, you tie it in the backyard, your dog is protection. It lets you know when somebody comes in your yard.
Yeah.
It lets you know when somebody comes in your space. So having a German Shepherd was the common, right? But fixing them, paying attention to their medical needs, shots and vaccines. A lot of these dogs succumb to illnesses that were preventable through shots, vaccines, deworming for intestinal parasites,
Mm.
the basic things. So by the time I finished vet school and got my own first pet as a doctor, my goal was, let's see if I just promote wellness and preventive medicine in my pets, how long they'll live. 16, 17, 18 years. Just off
Really?
vaccines, making sure they had flea, tick, and heartworm prevention, things that were basic needs for any pet living indoors or outdoors would extend the quality of life.
Wow. And see, in my mind, growing up with animals and
Yeah.
not taking care of them the right way, they would live to maybe 10 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
thought that was normal.
Yep. Yep.
So they can live
Yep.
an extended life.
Yep. 18, 22, 23. Yep.
Wow. Never knew that. Just learned something new.
And even though you
Yeah.
had yours live to 10 to 12, mine's never made it that far. I never
Really?
had geriatric pets. We talking
Yeah.
5 years old, 6 years old. And now as a profession, I know that that's young. That's not old. So
That's
most of your
extremely
pets
young.
hit senior age at 8, and they're really age of maturity at 8 years old, where they're seniors in double digits, 10 and up. So
Yeah.
it's a thing.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so now you start working as a veterinarian
Mhm.
in Arkansas. What was next? Like, how did you lead into, okay, this is really what I want to do, and I'm so passionate about it that I want some equity
Yeah.
in this?
So just getting into the profession for me, I had spent so much time as a child and teenager, those years really focused and buckled down on I gotta reach this goal. I get to vet school and I go to a predominantly white institution at Mississippi State, and I say, it's only like one or two of us in this class. And I remember sitting the first day of class and my teacher making the statement, look around, everybody that's in here is not going to be here in the next 4 years when it's time to graduate. And at that moment, again, now I have to challenge myself to say, I don't want to be that person. I'm already a minority in
Right.
this field and I want to stay. And so get through those 4 tough years of vet school, come out on the other side, and I'm like, I made it. Then I get my first job and I say, I made it. And I had decided, I reached my goal, but I never had any additional goals after that.
Yeah.
And so we had decided, me and my husband were settling in Arkansas, bought a house, started my first job, loved it, everything was perfect. And then things started to change. And so my husband ended up leaving to pastor a church, and we decided to move to California. So
Mm.
that was a huge move for a girl and a guy from the South,
Yes.
following God's obedience and saying, "Hey, we're going all the way to the West Coast." So we moved to the West Coast. I ended up interviewing at a couple places, had a job when I moved, and started working, and it felt completely different than what I was used to in the South. Medicine, quote unquote, doesn't change in that short of amount of time, but there was just differences in what's important on the West Coast versus what's important in the South. So having to recall those differences, go through additional testing, and I would say the things that started to spark me to look in different directions were failures. I recently started listening to Kevin on Stage's book, Successful Failure, and I can relate with so much of the stuff that he said because it was the failures that really started to push me into realizing there's some successes in there and there's a different direction that I have to go in. And if I had my own choice, I would not have pushed myself into those directions. I would have kept myself in my little veterinarian bubble with a white picket fence, and I was happy with that. And it was a great accomplishment, but I think God had more and still has more for me,
Yeah.
which is what has now pushed me into the franchise ownership
Yeah.
process. I had never imagined owning a franchise. I had at once in undergrad considered owning the vet clinic, but after I started working for other people and started seeing just some of the things that went into that, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't want that. And so as life started to transition, I started to have children and I couldn't work all the hours that I used to. I started transitioning into like wellness medicine. I was a program director at a vet tech school. I was a night instructor at a tech school. So things just started changing. And finally, I landed a job in corporate medicine as a wellness veterinarian.
Okay.
And so I was like, this is wellness a thing? Like, doesn't it have to be like all the tough things, the internal medicine things that you can't figure out that leave you awake at night and making
That's what I
phone
thought.
calls? I'm
Yeah.
thinking that's all the options I have. And as I got into wellness medicine and started realizing these are small clinics that push your heartworm, your flea, your tick, your vaccines, which goes back to my childhood, which is where the issues were, I started to find a passion in that. And I started saying, okay, so these give the basic needs of what pets need. The only thing that's missing is the surgical component. So I did that for a few years. And after starting that, I was like, I like this. And then we ended up transitioning out of California to Louisiana.
Mm.
And so I ended up working for another corporate practice that, again, was more of a wellness type focus. But now I had the surgery component to be able to spay and neuter. Remember going back to my childhood, we didn't spay and neuter. So we had
No.
all these pets running around. So as I started to do that, I realized my passion was in educating other people about what their pets need. Because I remember walking into several rooms, and people say, it's not about the money, it's about what I'm paying for. And whether I'm working with a white client or a black client, one of the things I love the most is I can work with either because I've been on both sides of understanding what it's like when you have a lot and what it's like when you have a little. So
Yeah.
I tell anybody the treatment plans I create is for the person that has no money and the person that has a lot of money
Yeah.
because anybody should be able to provide some sort of service for their pet to make themselves feel like I did the best I could.
Yeah.
Some people just don't know because of the lack of knowledge. And so, one thing that I started priding myself on was educating my clients, no matter the color. And especially with dealing with people of color, a lot of times the attitude can be, well, why should I spend this money on this dog?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're dealing with different emotional levels and levels of emotional maturity about how they should address. You got one person that's like, it's just a dog, and the other person like, this is my baby.
Yeah.
And so helping people to find a middle ground to say, hey, this may be just a dog, but you love this person and this is their baby. How do we
Right.
meet in the middle? And a lot of it is fear of how much money am I putting into this? It's just a dog. And less for most is not. It's a family member. It's my
Yeah.
other kid. It's all the things. And
Right.
I think being able to address a treatment plan with people, help them understand why this is important, we get more people that are compliant. And when I have
Yeah.
more people that are compliant, I have more animals that are
Yeah. Well, look, education
well.
as far as how to take care of your animal was something that was not talked about
Yeah.
in many households,
Yeah.
right? And I think when you mentioned the streets around the corner and the streets where people
Yeah.
animals were dying at an early age, it wasn't important.
Yeah.
It was enough to have to put food on the table.
Yes.
Make sure that the kids' education is where it needed to
Right.
be. So to worry about a dog
Yeah.
or an animal was like not a priority.
Yeah.
And to your point, there are some animals that are like family. And I would have never thought that would be me, but
Right.
my dog
Right.
now, like, don't mess with my
Don't
baby.
mess with my baby.
He's one of my kids, and I
Hmm.
love him because my kids love him.
Yep.
And my husband loves that dog.
Yep.
I love him, but I don't love him as much as they do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
But
understand, like I said,
yeah,
that's the conversation I'm having in rooms with clients.
yeah,
So as I started to get into that, I realized there are a lot of people that aren't educated or can look at it in more than one way to
yeah.
understand. And so as I started to kind of get more into that, um, I started getting emails from students that were looking to come shadow me.
Mm,
I was a part of, ended up joining the National Association of Black Vets, helped to kind of become a charter member and launch that with Dr. Annie. And so she had created like a mentorship list type thing, and people could go to the website and look up black vets in the area and reach out to you. So
yeah.
one young lady found me, sent an email to the corporate company because that's the only email address she could find. And my medical director came to me one day and he says, "Do you know this person?" I said, "No." And he says, "Well, they want to shadow with you as a part of their veterinary requirements for graduation." And I said, "I'm cool with that."
Yeah.
And so she came to hang out with me and she said, "I've done all of my externships, but I've never done an externship
Wow.
with a black vet. And I wanted to do one with you. I just found your name on the list and decided to try it and see." So she came out, stayed with me a few weeks at that clinic, and then she went back to campus and she told everybody. So, like every week, it was somebody new. I had Asian students, I had black students, I
Yeah.
had a few white students, but the majority were minorities. And
Wow.
so from there, I developed the passion, which was already there because the struggle of being a little black girl in a little small town trying to find a place to shadow was
Right.
difficult. I remember my mom driving me from clinic to clinic. I'm dropping off letters that I have written that my counselors have read over to make sure they were, grammatically correct and the spelling was all right. And everywhere I would go, door closed, rejection. I don't have room for anybody. And I'm trying to volunteer services. I'm not even trying to get a job. And here I get into my senior year of high school at Moss Point High, and I still have not stepped foot into a vet clinic.
Wow.
Never ever. So I would see animals on the street, feel the passion, but I'm not for sure. Am I going to like this? Like, what if I
Mm,
hate this? And so I go to college at Alcorn. I'm an undergraduate pre-vet animal science major. Still have not set foot into a vet clinic. My senior year in undergrad, I had my advisor, Dr. Cassandra Vaughn at the time, was a black female, first black female vet I had a chance to meet,
wow.
and she was my advisor and instructor, and she really pushed me to try to find the things that I needed. She said, "You need a 2 week externship." So I reached out to back to my hometown to a little small vet clinic right on Main Street. And I said, "Hey, I need 2 weeks of externship." And Dr. Roberts at Roberts Small Animal Clinic said, "You can come."
Yeah.
And so I spent my 2 weeks there, and it was the best 2 weeks of my life, just a few weeks before graduation. And I knew this is where I was supposed to be. And so I said all that to say, now being in a place, I realized I needed a place of my own to be able to give this same back to people who need it because the
Yeah.
struggle is still the same 20
Yeah.
years later, where minorities are having issues getting hours and clinical experience in a vet clinic. So that's what got me interested in how do I become a clinic owner? How do
Yeah.
I say, because as an owner, I have more freedom to let who I want come versus trying to check somebody else's boxes that say, well, you got to have this form or you got to do this, and we have this week, and this person is coming. So if I'm my own boss and I
Yeah.
run the place, I get to decide who I want to let come in the doors. And so I was exploring the idea of owning a vet clinic, and everything kept falling through.
Mm,
Couldn't find funding, couldn't have the right credit score, couldn't sell enough properties. Every time they would give me something to check off a list and I check it off, it was never
something
good enough.
else. Yeah.
And a friend and I were looking at a joint venture to be able to open together. And it didn't quite go where we wanted to go. And we were just amazed that we're like, okay, God, I know you're leading us here, but maybe this isn't the route you want us to take. So our venture was split in half, and just on a whim, I ended up losing a job again, successful failure. And it was unexpected. It was an email in the middle of the night. Hey, this company's shutting down. And you're like, okay, right. I got kids. I took a at home job as a telehealth veterinarian.
Wow.
Yep. And I said, okay, this is good. I can see my kids get on and off the bus and get them out the house in the morning. And it was still a struggle. And that kind of just fell through in the middle of the night one night through an email. And I was like, wow, where do I go next? Okay, so I guess we'll figure this out.
Right.
And ended up going to a Black Vet conference, ran into another Black veterinarian.
Wait, there's a Black
There's
Vet
a Black
conference?
Vet conference now. It's probably about 5 years old.
Yeah.
Started right before COVID, the National Association of Black Veterinarians. So
Yeah.
now there's a space for Black veterinarians because of all the issues we've had in
Yeah.
trying to get the hours, meet the people, network. So now there is a conference every year in New Orleans where Black vets all over the country and world
Yeah.
get together to network.
I had no idea.
Yes, and so that's where kind of I would go every year, and everything slowed down during COVID, and now we're just picking back up over the last 2 years. And so, one of the doctors that was there as a guest speaker was working with PetSmart, and he was like, "We have the opportunity to gift minority ownership to veterinarians." And so I reached out, not thinking I was going to really be selected, and was able to go through the process and became a franchise owner of
Wow.
PetSmart.
Wow. So how long did that process take? So from you inquiring about it to you actually signing, launching, opening your doors, all of that.
So it took about 8 months.
Okay.
Only because I would tell myself I'm not a risk taker. All the time I would say I'm not a risk taker. I don't believe in risk. I don't ride roller coasters. I don't do anything that's going to jeopardize the potential of whatever my plan is working out.
Yeah.
And here recently, it's funny because I was having this conversation with my friend, and I said, I'm just not a risky person. So I jump on social media and I'm just reading through different things. And I read some entrepreneur's little post, and it was like, taking a risk is faith. I've always described myself as being a person of faith, and that's
Yeah.
a story for another day of some of the stuff I've spoken out of my mouth
Yeah.
that have happened. And I said, okay, God, I see where you're going with this. You're
Yeah.
basically telling me you are a risky person because you're a person of faith. And I was like,
Exactly.
okay, so now I'm officially a risk taker.
Yeah.
And so when this opportunity presented itself, my husband was like, oh, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And I'm like, no, that's not me. That's not me.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to do it with you. And so my
I love
husband
that.
became my operations manager for the clinic, and signed the papers, and they were like, okay, give us this many months to get your facility prepared, because PetSmart stores have several veterinary clinics already in the stores that are not open, that are available. And so it was just figuring out what's available in the state based on what was closest to me, is how I kind of looked at it, and what was available was what I had to choose from. And so
Okay.
I said, well, this one is the closest, and we'll kind of go from there. And so within a few months, going through different calls, veterinary business consultants, and the great part of it is they provide these things as a part of the process.
Mm.
So it takes the guesswork out of having to do it all by yourself to figure out the legal pieces, what type of certifications you need for this, and what type of tax level you need for this, and how you should set up your accounts. And they walk you through that step by step and say, okay, this week work on this. Next week work on this. And it just seemed too good to be true. I was waiting on any given moment for, like my friends say, the other shoe to fall.
Yeah.
But it was pretty much seamless, and it was almost like God had just laid this out, like, this is what I want for you.
Right.
But the battle for me was, at the same time I was working for LSU as a community outreach veterinarian, and I was trying to figure out which one to choose. How do I make this work? And in the end, me working full time as a entrepreneur for myself
Yeah.
ended up being the
Yeah.
final call.
So what made you make that decision? Because you think, okay, working for LSU,
Right.
reputation, big name,
Right.
opposed to working for yourself, kind of starting small, but
Right.
knowing the potential. Like what made you
Right.
say, I'm gonna go this route?
So looking at it, it became a thing where we initially wanted to do it as an investment opportunity, bring in a full-time doctor, and we couldn't figure that part out. So it was, let's just step in and I'll do it myself, and I'll make that decision, and we'll kind of go from there. Because being able to work with the university was great, but there were things that I had to look at that could be a potential conflict with university work as well as what I would be doing for myself. So
Got it.
make the decision to bet on myself.
Yeah. No, look, and that's the reason I asked that, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're building something for yourself, sometimes it may start small,
Yeah.
but it's got the potential to be great.
Right.
And it's something that you could leave. You own that. You
Yeah.
can pass that opportunity on to your children, right? That is your legacy.
Yeah, it was very difficult.
Yeah.
It was very difficult. But the reason we got into it to start, even the interest, was because of legacy.
Yeah.
And I was listening to one of your recent podcasts talking about, what kind of legacy are you leaving? And so often we as people think of legacy as things that are of monetary value.
Yes.
And when I started to look at things differently, I realized even for my husband, when he was like, what if this is an opportunity of a lifetime?
Yes.
Even being able to say you did it, even if it doesn't work, because everybody was like, not all businesses work. If it doesn't work, sell
It's
it.
gonna
I'm like,
work.
what does that sound like? I'm just gonna sell it, the way
No.
they say it.
Throw that noise away.
Yes.
It's gonna work.
Yes, and so it was like, you know what? Let's just try it. Let's just try it. And when I tell you it's been a try, it's definitely been a try. But I have learned so much in the process. I told my husband recently, I said, thank you so much. I said, because I have learned a lot. I would have never learned any of this if I had never, the opportunity hadn't presented itself and we hadn't decided to move forward.
And you became that risk taker.
I'm a risk taker officially.
Yes, that faith risk taker.
I'm
yes.
a faith risk taker now.
Yes. So I think that's so important, not only because you did it for yourself and your legacy, but there's so many other people. Remember those opportunities that you said, I just couldn't get my foot in the door.
Yes.
I couldn't get anybody to let me come and shadow them and intern for a few weeks. You are now that avenue for so many other people.
Because even being at the university, you think the same thing. I'm near the students now, right?
Yeah.
I have so much access to them, but I didn't because the job that I was doing, some things they could assist with and some things they couldn't. So even with the recent social media posts from my hometown, I've had so many people just inbox me, hey, my kid wants to be a vet. Where do I start? What do I do? And it's like, for me, those are the moments that I have been living for.
Yeah.
Like I tell people, my life is great.
Yeah.
But God has something bigger, and my bigger is connected to other people.
Yeah.
So it's like I love to give to other people. I always joke with my friends. I said, y'all, I'm going to be a philanthropist. I don't know when. Even coming here today, I said, guys, get y'all bags ready because I'm going to Jennifer Hudson, and just get your outfits and be ready. So
Yes.
a lot of it is I joke about, but I'm serious. Like
Yeah.
I really believe God has something more for me, and this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And for me to have to like, okay, God, this is where we going. I really have to, like, this is me
Yeah.
and God, because out of my own self, not gonna happen.
So let me tell you, I wish there was a Krista Miller when I was growing up. And I say that because I've never told anybody, well, I've never shared this publicly.
Mhm.
My family knows. I don't even know if I've told my husband. But when I was a little girl, elementary school, I wanted to be a veterinarian.
I believe it. I believe it.
But I never saw a Krista Miller. And I was on the side of the street where my animals were dying,
Yeah.
8 and 10, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know. So to know that you're helping people and now people can see, it's one thing of knowing other veterinarians,
Yeah.
but knowing that there's a Krista Miller out there that came from a small town, that went to a small university, that didn't give up, that had several doors closed in her face, and look at her now. That is huge. So not only are you changing, again, your legacy, but there's so many people that's going to come behind you and remember the name Krista Miller.
I'm glad they have something to remember,
Yeah.
because I remember, even I would tell people, I'm not doing it for me. It's not just for me. And I'm an only child. So I always say it's not just for me. It's for other people that need to see this. So when I look back, or I have students that come and say, it's because you mentored me or because you did this, I look back and I say, wow, this is what I wanted. I wanted to be able to change the trajectory for somebody else, because the trajectory was so tough for
Right.
me that it didn't have to be that tough for others. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to lay a path and be like, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Let me show you an easy way, or let me introduce you to this person who can help you get to what you need to be. I tell my friends all the time, they say, I think I don't like this job. I say, okay, change it. 'Cause I don't believe
Just
in
like
working a
that.
job that I don't like.
Yeah.
Find what you like, figure out how to get there, and let's go. And it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be tough.
Yeah.
But it's worth it, because the amount of stress and time and lack of sleep that you give up on things that you don't enjoy, why not find that you do, and rather spend more time and stress and all that into that? So when you get to that point of, I did it, whatever that feels like, whatever success looks like for you, you'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
So
I agree. So I know your daughter's here with you, and we won't put you on camera, but unless you want to be. She's like, no, thank you. So, hey, multipliers, it's Taisha Beard inviting you to the Legacy Summit 2026. It's going to be April 25th of next year at the Gonzalez Pace Center in Gonzales, Louisiana. If you've been to the Legacy Summit 2025, this one is going to be next level. We have a tax strategist that's going to teach us for 2 hours how to save hundreds of thousands of dollars that I have in my taxes for having real estate. And then we're also going to have an AI professional there that's going to tell you how to scale your business and use AI for efficiency. We have a panelist of women developers, and there's going to be so much more. So now is your time to get your early bird tickets at www.mylegacysummit.com. Early bird tickets are on sale through October 30th. After that, you can still go to mylegacysummit.com to get your general admissions or VIP tickets. If you are a sponsor and would like to sponsor us, there's packages for sponsors. And if you want to be a vendor at the summit, also go to mylegacysummit.com to get all your information about becoming a vendor. Are your kids, do they love animals? Are they a part of the business? Like, what does that
So
look
my
like?
kids are part of the business,
Yeah.
but they are not big animal people. They
Yeah.
like their pets. They love their pets.
Yeah.
And they were there for the grand opening. They were there to take photos. They were very, very excited. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things to look at my children and think about my parents, and they said, look at where we are. We want you to do something bigger. We're willing to make the sacrifice for you to be bigger because we are not there. And
Right.
so you think about things being a legacy of a generation. And some days, every day when I pull into my driveway, I'm like, this is my house. For somebody else, it could be a simple house. But knowing where I grew up,
Yes.
it's completely different. I was there recently just driving through my neighborhood, and I was like, I walked these streets for years. I grew up in this house right here, and it was 7 or 8 of us at any given time living in that house, and the number of animals, and looking at my neighbors that are no longer there, and it's like, this is where I came from. And then when I go to work every day or go home, or you look at the cars you drive and you're like, but this is where God has placed me. It's truly like, it's humbling. And I never want to get to a place where I have to be humble. I'd rather stay that way because, and I tell my kids all the time, my daughter probably knows it with the back of her mind, that it's like, this was work, and it's all because of God. Everything that we have is not because of what your parents do. It's what God has allowed us to steward and what He allows us to do. And I'm truly grateful every single time to flip a light switch and it works.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you've never been in a situation where your light switch don't work and you don't know why, then it just brings something different. And so they love their pets that are well protected, that they see, like the dogs that I got when I was in undergrad, to see that those pets were a part of their life. We got one left out of the 3.
Yeah.
But they're like, Mom, she's 18 years old, but then we got a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old dog, and it's like you see the big difference between an 18-year-old dog and a 2-year-old dog, and they see the fruit of our labor. We talk to them about, being obedient to what God wants for us and what we expect for you as your parents. So they're figuring out what they like. They like pets from a distance, and I tell my daughter all the time, don't feel forced like you have to be a vet. That was my goal and my dream and things that I love. Figure out what you want to do for you. And for years, she thought she wanted to be one, but now I think we're leaning in different directions. So my son, who knows? He has a lot of things that he loves, and we'll see if anybody decides. I do have a nephew that loves animals, so we'll see. He might be the one.
He might be the one to carry on the legacy.
He might be.
Yeah. So, Krista, you mentioned the first franchise. Like, is your goal to buy more franchises?
So I don't know.
Okay.
But there are other clinics that I may have interest in.
Okay.
And so we're waiting to see how those are going to unfold. And if it unfolds in that direction, that's the way we'll be going. So I never again thought about owning a franchise, let alone owning more than one vet clinic or more than one business at a time. So now my mind is open to. I think about the scripture that talks about God doing exceedingly and
abundantly and above all
right.
that
So
you can
like,
ask or think.
my mind thinks like this. I already know. So the idea of having another is scary to me, but I said, God, that's what you want. Whatever you ordain, you're going to sustain. Right. So that's my expectation of Him. So if He hands me another one, I'll take it too. Because the way I look at it now is, I had a rep come from one of the lab companies recently, and he was talking about how many clinics are selling and going corporate. And he was like, sometimes the corporations may make prices different or practice things a little bit different than what we may do in a privately owned practice. And I said, so basically what you're saying is the key is keep your ownership and figure out how to build a legacy. He was like, yeah. And I said, so it sparked, of course, a light bulb moment for me to say, hey, I don't have to work this for a long time, but maybe I want to keep the legacy in the family.
Yes.
And when I'm done here, pass it on to somebody else that can keep it rolling.
Exactly.
Because the issue was now finding places where minority students can come and not have to worry about being uncomfortable or being in a safe space. I welcome everybody and any animal, any pet for the most part. The ones that I see are dogs and cats, but I have some doctors that come in and they see reptiles. So certain students, I'm like, hey, you're into reptiles, come on this day. So I often have relief veterinarians come in, and I have some that have interest in shelter medicine, some that have interest in reptiles. So now the students or just youth in general that are interested are able to see certain things on certain days.
Yeah.
So I like to be able to offer that because I can't do it by myself.
Right.
So I like to build that family and build that community of people that are interested or those that have more to offer than I just have. So it's nice to have a network of black vets or
Yes.
different vets, period, to pour into the next generation of those in the veterinary medical profession.
I love that. Have you thought about having workshops?
So, I thought about it. I just don't know which direction to go.
Yeah.
So many thoughts that I've had. I've even thought about starting a nonprofit, being able to mentor girls, or even those from a young
That's a
age
great
that may
idea.
be interested in veterinary medicine, because there are so many people that I know, so many things that I know now to say, hey, don't do this, try this route. And so those that are struggling or that are underdogs, they're like, I don't know, like I'm supposed to fill out this application. I don't even know where to start. I'm like, hey, I may or may not know, but let's look at it. Yeah, I read students that apply to vet school. They'll say, hey, can you read through my application before I submit? I sure can.
Yeah.
And I'll say, hey, it isn't strong enough. Or maybe you should wait to the next round. What's the rush? You're young.
Yeah.
So it's just helping people see a different perspective before they just jump out on the limb, talk to them about discouragement,
Yeah.
talk to them through things that they're afraid of, or just letting them vent, because vet school is hard. I mean, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And when you're a minority in vet school, it's even harder because you're focused on what feels safe, trying to stay focused on your lesson as well as trying to stay, focused on things for you that may
Right.
not be provided in that moment. And sometimes the culture of different veterinary schools, in different locations where you may not be from, because there are only 33 vet schools in the United States.
I didn't
So,
realize that.
yeah, only 33. When I was in school, it was only 27. So sometimes you may find yourself getting accepted and you're from Mississippi and you find yourself at UC Davis. That's a big change.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to be successful in a place where you're uncomfortable.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned your parents earlier,
Yeah.
doing their work, making sure that you study, you
Yeah.
find time to focus on your learning. Are they still here today?
They are still here.
So they,
My
oh
mom
my
just
gosh.
visited me recently. My dad is in Mississippi. My mom is in California, and so I'm constantly with them both. Even with them through the aging process
Yeah.
now, and going to doctor visits, and they still here, motivate and encourage. And I know that my parents are very proud.
That's what I
Because
was
yes,
gonna
they
ask.
are.
Like to see
They
you
are.
knowing all the cat's dog and everything else was
It
in
was
their
worth it.
garage, and they're like, okay, it was all worth it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So what did they say, like when you not only graduated
Yeah.
from veterinary school,
Yeah.
like what did they say when you bought your franchise? Were they like, we didn't think it could get this big, but oh my God,
So
like
my
she
dad
did
is a
it.
man of a few words.
Okay.
And so I remember going through school and always being like, is he proud? What does he think? And my dad was the type of guy, I go to work, I make sure you have what you need, and that's love, right?
Right.
And so I don't always have to say I love you for you to know, but I was a kid that's like, I think he loves me, but I know he loves me because he works, right? And he provides for what I need, but does he really, really, is he proud of my accomplishments? And I remember I would go to church as a kid, and one of the guys would come and he was like, your dad's so proud of you. And I was like, how you know? He would work with my dad. And he was like, oh, he talks about you all the time. And now, being older, I remember riding my dad to a doctor's visit, and they had to place him, give him a little bit of anesthesia. And when he was coming out, he was just talking. He was like, yeah, this is my daughter. And the lady says, oh, so you're the one who went to vet school and became a vet and did all the things. She knew my whole life story. And she was like, yeah, your dad been talking about you since he got in here.
Oh.
And then last week, recently, I took him to the doctor again, and he had he forgot to hang up the phone, and he was talking to her, robbing him. He was like, yeah, that's my daughter. She just opened her own vet clinic. I'm so proud of her. Yeah, she's doing a lot of great things. So I hear about what he thinks through other sources,
Yeah.
but I can tell because I know how my dad is that he's very, very proud. My mom is more like, she'll tell me, she'll hug me, she'll kiss me, she'll show up for whatever's going on. She's there with bells and whistles on.
Yeah.
So they were always one of my biggest cheerleaders. They just cheered in different ways.
Yeah. I'm glad that they were here to see it.
Yeah.
You
me
know,
too.
I think that's
Me
that's
too.
even more special.
Yes.
So we gonna do some workshops. We're gonna do some. Look, I'm not even. I'm just. I'm seeing bigger, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing the opportunity for so many others that
Yeah.
come behind you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a small school.
I'm here for
You know,
it.
I'm thinking a small school. I'm thinking more franchises, and you're having the people that you train as they're going through school to come out
Mhm.
and run those different
Yeah.
stores because you
Yeah.
can't be at them all.
I can't, and I don't want to be at them
Right,
all.
right. You want to work on the business, not in the business eventually, right?
I do. I want them to call me and say, Dr. Miller, I need help with this space. I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna show you how to do this the easy way, and then you got it from there.
I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go back home. Right. Yes.
That's always
Yes.
been, and these are things that I used to just joke about.
Yeah.
And some of my friends that work with me from being vet techs, from those that are being veterinarians, know I've always been like, I'm coming in with my bag and I'm gonna sit it on that table and I'm gonna say, okay, what we doing? And then I'm out. And in every meme that I was sending them, I was fully dressed to the nines. I don't know where I was going. And they would laugh. I'm like, where you going? I said, I don't know, but the plan wasn't for me to stay in this role. The plan is I'm
Wow.
coming in as the boss, right?
Yes.
And so to now be in a position where I am the boss is funny because of it happening before
Yeah.
my eyes, and it just didn't unfold the way I thought it would in
Yeah.
my mind. And so that's why when I ran across that book, Successful Failures, I was like, that's how I feel some days, because sometimes what people see is not what's actually happening,
Right.
right? And you're like, oh Lord, am I in the black? Am I in the red? What are we doing this week?
Right.
How many clients do I have today? Or what happens if I get sick? You know, those things all run through your mind as the owner before the comfort of working for somebody
Right.
else that has to deal with it's a hurricane coming.
Right. Right.
What are we doing with this clinic? What if it blows away? Or what's the insurance cover? Those type of things I never had to think about.
Yeah.
So now I have to think about all of that. Or somebody comes in and they're like, are you 18? And we have to ask those questions just because of things that have happened. And I was telling someone recently, it's amazing the rules you create because of things that happen. And you're
Right.
like, I didn't even know I should have this. The minute somebody doesn't, they pay their bill and then they go to the bank and tell them it was a
Fraud.
fraudulent charge, and then you get a letter that says a chargeback, and then you call about it and they say, well, you're probably not going to win the chargeback, so you just be prepared to pay it. And you're like, but do you realize the bill was $800, right? So it's like the 800 I made, I have to give back at the end of the month because of this investigation. So it's things like that
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for. And then it's like, so how do I prevent this? Oh, you need to get their ID and get this. Nobody told me that. And
Yeah.
so those things that I've learned, it's like I would have never learned any other way.
Yeah.
I would have preferred to have learned it a different way. But now knowing those things, the next time I know somebody who owns a business or wants to purchase a franchise, hey, look out for this. Don't buy all of that. You know,
Exactly.
you just and you wonder, why didn't anybody tell me that? Oh, there was nobody to tell you that you knew. You know,
There was nobody to tell you, or you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Again, going back to the education
Right.
component. So,
Right.
when I opened the franchise 6 months prior, my very very good friend opened a clinic 6 months prior, and so the difference between both of us was one of us, hers was more of a brick and mortar, and mine was more of a let's purchase this franchise. And so the interesting dynamic was we were facing some of the similar challenges, and some things were opposite, but we needed each other to completely go through the process. So we have realized, this has been tough, and God told us this is where we were going, but we had no clue where we were headed,
Right.
and that we would need each other to get to where we are today. So we are literally managing two clinics with the help of each other in
Right.
two different locations, two different places. And it's
Wow.
like, what if we had started together? Who knows what it would have been, because we both would have been trying to figure out the one place.
Right.
And now there have been needs that one clinic had that, oh, I got you. Let me bring that over.
Yeah.
Or do you have? Yep, I got it. I'll bring it. And so we became each other's resource. So it was challenging, but the challenges have been great to see how God works them out.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know Miles Monroe.
I know the name.
Okay, so he was a pastor from the Bahamas. He's deceased now, but
Okay.
he has, content all over the internet, YouTube, Facebook, you name it, he's there. And his messages are still blessing people to this day. And I think he passed away several years ago. And there's one thing that I heard him, he was doing an interview, and I heard him say, he said that God doesn't show you the journey, he'll show you the destination. So he shows you where, like exactly where you're going to be, how it's going to be, all of that stuff. But if he showed you the journey to get there, you wouldn't do it.
And would not.
Wouldn't do it. And so he says that's where your faith, that's where the risk
comes in, right?
That's where the risk comes
Yes.
in. And you just have to say, okay, God, I know what you have for me.
Yeah.
And I almost don't want to see it because I don't want to talk myself out of it. Just guide me every day
Every day.
to get to that place.
And that was the biggest lesson we both had to learn. I know for sure I've had to learn was one day at a time, because you're throwing so many things and your mind says, well, this is all I have, but I got to get to here. And I mean, it was some sleepless nights, you could feel the anxiety bomb in your stomach. And then I remember God saying, one day at a time. And it's literally one day at a time. And somebody will call and say, can you? I'm like, I don't know. Let me just look at my calendar and pick this day, and I'll let you know in a few days as it gets closer. But that one day at a time has helped me tremendously with levels of stress in being a business owner, and watching how it unfolds one day at a time. Because I feel like sometimes my mind can be my biggest weapon. Yeah. Because it just starts thinking, and then it turns into a snowball. And then before you know it, I've been thinking for 4 or 5 hours and I still don't have a solution. Yeah. So what was the point? Been there. So I've learned to say, I'm going to sleep. And when I get up tomorrow, it's probably still going to be there. Yep. But I expect for it at some point to be handled. I don't know what the result's going to be on the other side. I don't know who I have to call for a payment plan, like Kirk Franklin said. I don't know who we got to get the payment plan through, but it's going to get taken care of. Yeah. So it's just in meeting people and being able to have discussions and realize you're not alone. It's a journey that it takes time. You just don't, everybody doesn't wake up and just automatically become the millionaire. It doesn't work that way. No. And sometimes if you have the discussions and sit down and just talk to people, you learn a story behind the work that it took to get to that place. Yeah. And just talking to some people have been really encouraging and motivating. The clinic is in Houma, and I live in Prairieville. Yeah. And so it's an hour and a half drive. And I remember at first saying, why did I do this? And I would go like once a week, and I had it was running off relief, and it's like, are these relief vets that I even like? I don't even know this person. And it was just risk after risk after risk. And I just wanted to throw in the towel and like, I'm leaving, I'm quitting, I'm going straight here and work. And when that time finally came, I remember driving and I was listening to podcasts, singing songs, and before I know it, I'm at the place, and I'm like, oh, I need about one more hour. So now the commute is nothing. Yeah. And I've learned to embrace the time, because as busy as life is, I often don't get my own time. But that commute time, that's you. Between me, the Lord, how many other podcast channels I'm listening to, and whatever song of the day is going on. And so, like, it's things like that I've learned to appreciate. That at first it was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I remember a time when we were living in California. My husband and I were joking about this recently. We lived in the Bay Area and he worked in LA. And he pastored a church in the Bay Area. And so he would literally go to work Monday through Thursday in Southern California. He would stay at my mom's house. She would come to me to be with me and the kids. And then he would drive back on a Thursday or Friday evening to back home to be at church for Sunday. And Sunday evening, he would jump in the car and drive back to LA. And it's a 6-hour drive. And he did that for about a year or two until he was transferred to a closer facility with Amazon in the Bay Area. And so it's like sometimes those struggles, you think, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then you start talking to people. Met another guy. He worked with Boeing. And for years, I'm talking like 15, 20 years, he would fly back and forth. And go back and forth home. And I was like, well, I didn't sign up for that. I don't want to do that. Right, right. But it's not about what I want. It was the way God worked it out. And to just be able to look at things that he's done over my life, I know that all of it was because of his hand. Yeah. And like you said, I want to see the journey. But now I'm like, you know what? Let me just enjoy the journey. Yeah, enjoy it. Learn to enjoy the journey. Yeah. And when things happen, just count it as a part of the journey, no matter how tough it is, and work through it. Let the Lord work through it. And then we go on to the next part of the journey. But he's already promised you something. So that's what you have to hold on to. Yeah. I know where I'm going. You've shown me the promise. I just got to trust the process. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes in the process, I'm like, it's just part of the journey. Oh, look. You think it's the devil? Is this the devil? This ain't you, God. Right. So you want me to own a who and do what with? I just want a regular little clinic. Yeah. I just want my regular first job, you know. All the other stuff, I'm like, oh, I could have kept that. But I realized in those moments were learning experiences. And not that I wouldn't have gotten them any other way, because of course, if it was up to us, we would have chosen a different way. Yeah. But to be able to see it and experience some things firsthand, and then be able to communicate it and see what it did for me. And I may not know the lesson until later, or I may not even know it all. It was just a part of the process.
Hmm.
But it was a lot. It's been a lot of learning. And in some of those cases, I know I was like, I wouldn't have known. I would
Yeah.
not have chosen to know some of the stuff that I know. But now I'm glad that I know it.
Yeah. So to that Black or brown woman that is saying, I want to become a veterinarian or maybe even a franchise
Yeah.
owner, right? What would you tell them? And I want you to look into that camera and talk to them.
I would tell you to follow your dreams, because the last thing you want is to have a dream or a goal that you never even tried. You never tried to take the shot. You know, it's worth taking a shot to see. And then once it happens, go with the flow. Like my mom said, hang on like Snoopy and roll with the punches, duck when you have to.
Yeah.
So I would just keep going. Don't give up. It's definitely going to be tough and a struggle, but it's a part of the journey and a part of the process.
Yeah. I think to any entrepreneur, I love what you said. It's going to be tough, but it's worth it. Any entrepreneur, any business owner, anytime you're starting something new, even a new career,
Yeah.
it can be challenging. There's going to be some ebbs and flows, but you have to persist. You gotta keep going. You have to be persistent. You have to have the tenacity,
Yeah.
and you just gotta keep going. If you stop, then you never reach that promise.
Right. And one thing I can say is it is not something you can do out of your own strength.
Mm.
God's strength is made perfect in our weakness, and it is the only reason I'm here today to be able to have gone through this,
Yeah.
because I know my own self. I know
Yeah.
that I would have been stopped a long time ago. But to see God's provision being made in the process, that I know was
Yeah.
because of Him. And I feel like I never heard people say it was a struggle,
Yeah.
because in your mind you can go into it thinking, "Oh, this is what God wanted. Boom, this is it."
Yeah.
And then be turned away thinking, "Oh, that's the enemy, it's the devil." Everything that God has for us doesn't roll through easy.
Right.
It's a process. There's some strengthening and some building and some foundation work that has to take place, because sometimes we think we're ready for something and we're not,
Yeah.
and other times we are not ready and God builds us in the process. So
Yeah.
it's just really just like one at a time, one step at a time. Every struggle, because they're coming. They
Yeah.
are coming.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So look, I am happy to say I know all of my Moss Point in-laws, the Moss Point High School. Look, that y'all represent.
Oh, we do. We do.
So my husband is a graduate of Moss Point High School, and let me tell you, when they give events, like they stick together as if they were just in school last
Yep.
year. So I want all y'all, and I have seen some of the Facebook posts and all. They are very proud of you. They are proud that someone like you owning a franchise, becoming an entrepreneur, all of these great things. And there's so many others that have done the same thing, but they acknowledge that. Like they push their people to the top and say, hey, this came from Moss Point right here. And I love that about the folks from Moss Point. So all my Moss Point people, look at what y'all did. Look at her. Look at her. So Krista, well, this is a question I did not ask my last guest, and I apologize, but I'm going to ask you, what does legacy mean to you?
Legacy to me is really creating a path for other people. I think being a servant is super, super important, because the people that you serve, you're adding a legacy to and give them something to see. I think physically, because you've never hardly met a person that you've served that doesn't turn around to serve someone else.
Yeah.
So I think leaving a legacy of servanthood is super, super important as a part of legacy, because that's something that's always going to follow you, follow the people that you serve, and help you to be an example of what being a servant looks like.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's awesome. So everybody, thank you so much for joining the episode and watching our content and supporting us on this channel. And Krista, if they wanted to get in contact with you, maybe a young veterinarian that's watching and wanted to shadow you, how can they get in contact with you?
So you can actually go to the PetSmart Veterinary Services website. It's for the Houma, Louisiana location. You can definitely reach out to me there. It gives you all the information for the clinic. You can also follow me on Instagram, Dr. K. Millie. And I'm on other platforms as well under just Krista Miller. I'm very simple, easy to work with, easy to reach. Again, my goal in life is to serve others, because I believe God places people into my life for a reason. I love to give back. So it's only one of me. So give me grace if I don't get back to you immediately. So, yep, that's where I am.
Awesome. Well, y'all get in contact with Krista. All of my young children, students, potential veterinarians, like if you're thinking about it, watch this video again and learn from what Krista's giving you the blueprint for. And I hope you guys like and follow her on social media, as I'm sure she's going to be posting about her business and the animals and what it is that she's doing. And if there's any workshops that's coming up, she's going to be posting that. We kind of, I keep saying that, right? If there's any workshops that's coming out, then she's going to be posting that so you guys can be a part of that and support her. Like, we want to support her. I'm even thinking about how I can get from Gonzales to Homer to get my dog Pickles over to her veterinarian, to her franchise.
That's
So
okay. You can find me. I'm in Gonzales on Wednesdays at Faithful Friends Animal Hospital.
see what I'm saying? You don't know until you open your mouth. So that's where Pickles will be going. Okay, so thank y'all again for watching the episode. Remember to leave legacies and not liabilities. Thank y'all for watching the show. Until next time.